She had been decapitated with her heart removed along with her other organs and her head placed next to her body. Hello and welcome to my channel. I hope you are doing well. My name is Gabby and in today's video it's about a man that committed his first crime at the age of 13 and would then go on to commit further horrific murders over 3 decades later. That man's name is Eric Brandt, better known as Charlie Brandt. In 2004, Michelle Lynn Jones was 37 years old and living near Orlando, Florida. On the 2nd of September, with Hurricane Ivan closing in on the state, her aunt and uncle, Teri and Charlie Brandt, aged 46 and 47 respectively, had to evacuate from their home on Big Pine Key, and Michelle agreed to let them stay with her. On the evening of the 13th of September, she called her friend Lisa Emmons to cancel plans for her to visit her at her home, saying that Charlie and Teri had been drinking and had got into an argument. Subsequently, Michelle stopped answering her phone, which, given that she was in the habit of staying in touch with her mother and with several of her friends, it was sufficiently out of character for it to be cause for concern on the part of those who knew her. On the 15th, another friend of Michelle's, Debbie Knight, went to her house to check on her. Finding the front door locked and no one responding to her knocking on it, Debbie then tried to enter the house via the garage. Through the mostly glass door of the garage, she saw the grisly sight of a decomposing body hanging from the rafters. A makeshift noose made from bed sheets was around their neck. It was Charlie. Upon seeing the hanging body, Debbie phoned the police, and when they entered the house, they found the bodies of Teri and Michelle. Unlike Charlie, they definitely weren't suicides. Teri's body was laid on the couch and had several stab wounds to the chest, but Michelle's remains were in an even more gruesome state. She had been decapitated with her heart removed along with her other organs and her head placed next to her body. The murder weapons were quickly determined to be knives from Michelle's own kitchen. Given the causes of death and the absence of any signs of forced entry and a struggle, it was soon concluded that the case was a murder-suicide, with Charlie as the killer. For most of those who knew him, the news came as a shock. Charlie Brandt had been a quiet, seemingly agreeable man whose marriage to Teri had seemed ideal. The couple had been inseparable, spending most of their spare time together, fishing and boating near their home on Big Pine Key. Then Charlie's older sister Angela came forward with a story about his past that showed a very different side of him. Eric Charlie Brandt was born on the 23rd of February 1957, the second child of Herbert and Ilsa Brandt. On the evening of the 3rd of January 1971, the family was in their home in Fort Wayne, Indiana. The children, Angela, Charlie, and 2 younger sisters had gone to bed, and Herbert was in the bathroom shaving while the 8 months pregnant Ilsa took a bath. Suddenly, Charlie entered the bathroom with Herbert's handgun and shot his parents while his father begged him not to. Herbert survived, but both Ilsa and her unborn baby were killed instantly. Charlie then went into Angela's room and tried to shoot her, but the gun was out of bullets. A struggle ensued, during which Charlie started to strangle Angela, who noticed a glazed look to his eyes before he snapped out of his apparent trance and asked, "What am I doing?" Angela managed to calm her brother down by promising to help him figure out what to do and got him to go upstairs to get blankets for their 2 younger sisters. While he was upstairs, she took the opportunity to flee to the neighbour's house. Charlie went there after her and said, "I have shot my mum and dad." Prior to this shooting, there had been no signs of anything amiss. Charlie did well in school, had shown no signs of underlying psychological stress, and generally seemed like a normal 13-year-old boy. When interviewed by the police, he attributed his crime to a combination of things related to school, saying, "Everything sort of just snapped in my mind. I felt like I never felt before." He also alluded to an incident that had occurred a few days prior to the shooting in which his father had shot and killed their dog while he and Charlie were on a hunting trip. Under Indiana state law, Charlie was too young to be tried for murder, so instead he spent a year in a psychiatric hospital before being released into his family's custody in June 1972. As he was a minor, his records were sealed, and shortly after his release, the family moved to Ormond Beach, Florida, to get away from those who knew about what had happened. They never spoke about the shooting, and the two youngest girls were under the impression that the mother had died in a car accident until 2004. In 1986, Charlie married Teresa, Teri Helfrich, and although he was advised to tell her about his past, it is unclear as to whether or not he actually did so. It wasn't the only thing about Charlie that's unknown whether Teri knew about. After the 2004 murders, Charlie and Teri's home in Big Pine Key was searched, resulting in police discovering that he was a monthly subscriber to Victoria's Secret catalogues and had an extensive collection of surgery-themed books, posters and clippings. His computer history was even more disturbing, showing that he'd regularly searched online for autopsy photos and snuff film websites depicting violence against women. In light of what was uncovered about Charlie, along with the manner in which Michelle was murdered, the police determined that it was likely that the murders they knew about were not the only ones. Therefore, they checked for cold cases matching Charlie's apparent MO, both in Florida and, as he'd regularly travelled for work, elsewhere in the USA and abroad. Among the cases reopened, one was conclusively linked to Charlie Brandt. On the 16th of July 1986, the body of a 38-year-old Sherry Parisho was found floating in a dinghy near her home on Big Pine Key, less than 1,000 feet from where Charlie lived. Her throat had been slashed viciously enough to almost sever her head from her body, and her body itself was extremely mutilated with her heart removed. Charlie matched a composite sketch of a man an eyewitness saw near where Sherry's body was discovered on the night of the murder. Additionally, Teri had confided in her brother-in-law that she suspected that Charlie was involved and that he'd come home that night with blood on his shirt that he'd claimed was from filleting fish. Given the evidence, Monroe County investigators determined that Charlie Brandt was responsible for the murder of Sherry Parisho and officially closed the case on 6th of May 2006. In addition to the confirmed murders, out of the 26 cold cases that were re-examined, 3 were determined to be of particular interest, although they couldn't be conclusively linked to Charlie Brandt. The first of these cases is the 1978 abduction and murder of 12-year-old Carol Sullivan, who was taken from her school bus stop in Volusia County, Florida, where the then 20-year-old Charlie also lived on the 20th of September. Her skull was later found in a bucket, leading authorities to conclude that she'd been decapitated. The second case was the murder of 20-year-old Lisa Saunders, who was beaten, stabbed, and dragged from her car in Big Pine Key in December 1988. Her body was later found with the heart missing, but it was unclear if it was the work of her killer or the scavenging of vultures. The third murder was that of 38-year-old Darlene Toller in 1995. Her body, minus her head and heart, was found wrapped in plastic sheeting and blankets in a grassy area by the highway near Miami. Charlie used the same highway regularly and kept a record of his mileage, with an entry for the date of Darlene's murder being 100 miles, which was roughly the distance between his home and the area of Miami where the body was found. Unfortunately, with the cases decades old and with Charlie Brandt dead, it is unlikely that we'll ever know for certain if Carol, Lisa and Darlene died by his hand. Similarly, we'll likely never know if there were any others or who they were. By committing suicide after his final 2 murders, Charlie Brandt ensured that an unknown number of families will never get closure. So that was Charlie Brandt. I would love to hear your thoughts about this case. The amount of violence involved and from such a young age, to me, shows that this kind of behaviour was inevitable from birth, and sadly it cost too many people their lives. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. It would mean the world to me. But until I see you again, please be safe, be well, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.